Hi, this is Andrew Nemec of the Oregonian and Oregon Live. I'm joined, as always, by Jordan Johnson, Oregon high school football guru. And this time we're joined by a special guest, Central Catholic safety, Oregon Ducks commitment, Brady Breeze. Brady, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You were recently named All-Prospect, All-State Player of the Year as voted on by the fans. What does that mean to you? It doesn't mean anything. Who cares about the Oregonians All-Prospect list, right? But at the same time, you have to be happy that people are recognizing you as the top talent in the state.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to know that, people believe in me and that they think, I'm one of the best players in the state, and it's a huge honor. It's always something I've wanted to be since I was a little kid. And now that, I've been voted the top prospect in the state, it's definitely humbling.
We've talked about for a long time that you felt like from your name, from your family name, that there was a certain legacy you had to live up to. Then you commit to Oregon, I think before your junior season, right? Mm-hmm. So for the last 2 years, there has been this target on your back that you're the Oregon safety. How has that been to deal with? Has that been a difficult experience? Is it fun? Do you like that challenge? What is that like?
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult experience when people are always trying to, make a play on you, and they put their highlights on you if I miss a tackle or something, or if they tackle me. It's a huge deal to them when really, it's not like that big of a deal if you tackle me or not. But there's always a lot of pressure, like in practice. If somebody makes a play on me or something, everybody gets all hyped up. Oh, Oregon commit, just got a pass caught on him. But it's also kind of cool because people expect a lot of you, and they definitely push me a lot harder than what they do to normal people. So it's cool to have a lot of people looking up to me and expecting me to do well and push me.
One of the nice things for you had to have been transferring from when you transferred from South Medford to Central Catholic. You came into a program that had Oregon commitments before, that had Pac-12 level players, that had U.S. Army All-Americans before. You're going to be special because you're Brady Breeze, you're committed to Oregon, you're a 4-star talent. But at the same time, it wasn't like we've never had this level of talent before. The program was kind of used to it. Did it seem like there was a different feel when you went there, that you weren't such a big fish in a small pond, that you kind of found your place a little more at Central Catholic maybe?
Yeah, I definitely found my place. I talked to our trainer at the school, and he goes, hey, if you want to be like Alex Balducci or the guys that have gone to Pac-12 schools and played there and stuff, he said, hey, if you want to be like them, you got to come in at 5:30 in the morning, come work out with us. So that's what I've been doing. He hasn't been treating me special or anything. He's been making sure I'm working hard and staying on task and focusing on my goal. So it's nice to have somebody that, expects me to be, working hard. So
I know you're happy to be committed to Oregon. You're excited about it. But another one of the downsides that we talked about is once you committed to Oregon, being a legacy kid, for those who don't know, your uncle, Chad Cota, played on the Rose Bowl team. He had a 7-8 year NFL career. You kind of felt like you couldn't experience the normal recruiting cycle. I know that a number of schools backed off because they assumed, well, he's going to Oregon. So not only did you get maybe not as much attention as some of the other kids ranked as highly as you, but also it seemed like you felt like, I can't take that visit to Alabama. I know that was considered for a while. I can't do some of the things that other recruits did. How much did that play a role in your recruitment once you committed to Oregon, that you did feel like, I'm committed and there's not a lot I can do?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a huge deal to me because UCLA is consistently every week they're trying to get me to come down to their home games and try to take a visit or something. And then Alabama's always trying to get me to go to their home games. But once I committed, I felt like this is a place I'm going, and this is where I've wanted to go my whole life. So why am I going to take other visits to other schools when I've always wanted to go to Oregon, and this is my place, and this is my home state? So it was just kind of like the perfect fit for me to commit to Oregon and have my family support me, and already have Duck stuff that I bought since I was a little kid, so I don't have to go buy new stuff. But Oregon's just been a great place to me, and I couldn't be more happy to be committed to Oregon. So
you went on the circuit, national circuit, on some 7-on-7 stuff with Jordan Johnson and Barton Football Academy. How much did that help you realize maybe where you still had room to grow or where you still needed to be? How much did that change the type of player that you were?
Well, it definitely showed me that, I need to improve on some things and improve on reaction time, backpedaling. There's little things like that because you're going against guys that are ranked on the national level and that I'm going to be playing with or playing against in the next couple of years. So it was a cool experience to be able to play against guys like that and then kind of prepare me for the opening, those almost as close as you can get to the opening 7-on-7. So it was pretty cool.
So this last year, as we talked about in the previous podcast, you earned first team all tournament honors at the national 7-on-7 tournament. No one from Oregon has ever done that. Talk a little bit about that experience and kind of what that was like for you.
It was pretty cool. I never really expected to be first team in that tournament because there's guys that are, first or second safety in the entire country or first or second DB, and for me to get, ranked higher than them, it was pretty sweet, and I was, pretty excited about that, and it just made me want to work that much harder to, push myself and then just get even better than I was.
So with that, there's 120 teams in attendance. You won a state title. You're named as an All-American. Baseball, all these achievements. What over the last year, if you were kind of ranking them, or if you could, what's kind of been the highlights for you?
Definitely winning the state championship and then getting the opening and invitation, because those were two things that I've always wanted since I was little, and having that state championship ring to show all the hard work that I've had the past couple years, and then I got the opening invitation. I've watched it on TV for however long it's been out, and to be able to go there and see the experience and actually go to the Nike headquarters that I've never been to before and check out that experience and meet some people that I've really looked up to. I even got to meet Richard Sherman and talk with him a little bit, and he actually knew who my name was when I shook his hand. I didn't even have to say my name, and he knew my name, so I was freaking out about that. And
cool.
It was a really cool experience, and I'll never forget the opening for as long as I live, because it's an amazing time.
You had a weird experience a little bit at the opening. I felt like, one, you looked different. And we talked about that in your own words. You were like the only white defensive back that was there. And you were, I think you're 5'11", 6 foot. You look like you've grown, though, so maybe 6'1".
Yeah.
200 pounds. I think you ran a 4.7 or something. And the times generally were slower in that initial timing. Then they moved to the faster field, of course, for everybody else's, but whatever. Anyway, it seemed like you were dismissed a little bit, or you felt dismissed a little bit early on after the testing session. What was that like, and how do you feel like you responded from that?
Well, people were kind of looking down on me a little bit, thinking, oh, he shouldn't even be here. He was the last-minute invitation. Why is he here? Why is there a white DB, trying to play safety from Oregon, from the state of Oregon? A small-town kid trying to play against guys that are the number one guys in the entire country. So people were looking down on me a little bit. And when I went to bed that night, I was like, I'm going to prove this all in the 7-on-7 tournament. And that's what I did. I showed myself in the very first game we had. And people kind of gained respect for me because I was known as the white guy that really should be playing quarterback and not DB. So it was a really fun time. I got to make a lot of friends, and yeah, it was fun.
You were originally listed, I think, as a quarterback,
yeah,
too.
That's why they're calling me a quarterback, because I was originally listed as a quarterback.
All in all, just disrespect, man. You did have a big play. You had a number of big plays in the opening 7-on-7. What is it about the testing phase that for you is not... You're not a combine guy. You're not a guy that sticks out of the combine. They go, oh my gosh, he's 6'5", runs a 4.3. That's not you. But what you are is a football player who understands the game at a higher level, I think. And I think I'm saying this and it's fair, more than maybe any other player in the state when it comes to on-the-field knowledge of what everyone else is supposed to do. What makes you different than your numbers?
Well, I've sat in the classroom and in my room and watched, so much film on all these guys. Ronnie Lott, Harrison Smith, all kinds of safeties that I've always watched growing up, and to be able to prove it in the opening. In the opening was something that I knew it was time for me to, show what I got and show what I've learned and show my, my skills. Because I'm not the fastest guy in the field, I'm not the biggest guy or the strongest guy, but I'm the guy that is going to try to outsmart the QB and make sure the defense is adjusted right, and make sure I'm always in the right spot, because knowledge is speed. If you know where you're going, then you're going to get there faster than the people that don't know what they're doing. So.
Now, I imagine safety was always going to be something you played, given your uncle. But what lessons did you learn from him, and was he on you early on? And I know your dad played as well, so is it not to discredit, you have a whole family of football players. How much were they on you about maybe higher level stuff when you were younger? Did you feel like you were learning some technique things, some reading of the quarterback eyes type of things that maybe other kids weren't learning until later? Were you learning that stuff at 5 and 6? Do you remember anything like that?
Yeah, I remember when we first got TiVo on our TV, my dad would never really let us just watch the game. I used to get mad at him. Hey, Dad, just let me watch the game. I quit pausing it and rewinding it, because he used to go back and rewind all the NFL games, Monday Night Football, anything. He would rewind it and show me, hey, you got to read this guy because, look, you can see the quarterback is looking over here, da-da-da. He's just always been, teaching me everything since I was a little kid, teaching me technique. Hey, this guy was peeking at the quarterback, and that's why he got beat. So ever since I can remember, my dad's been teaching me everything I know. So I definitely give all the respect to him, and I kind of owe everything to him for what, he's made me as a player.
Well, that's one thing that I think is a skill that's transitioned to you. I know when we've talked about football, particularly Oregon football, and some of the struggles they've had in the secondary, you can diagnose it certainly without me having to explain it to you. You know better than I do. But we talk about it, and I'll say, what happened here? And you can explain exactly what happened. It makes it easier to stomach, I think, Oregon's struggles when you know. And some of the fans say, well, Oregon's defense isn't good anymore. There's more to it than that. What are you seeing from Oregon that you say, this is a little more fixable than people realize? And not only that, but John Neal's a much better coach maybe than people are giving him credit for right now.
Yeah, well, people are saying, Don Pillum or Coach Neal, they're just horrible coaches. They need to get fired. Somebody needs to come replace them. I could be a better defensive coordinator than them, blah, blah, blah. But, it's way more than just losing the game. It's all technical stuff. Missed coverages, guys are not showing up to practice. Just little things. They're a really young team. They've got young DBs, young linebackers. So they're trying to get guys to, figure out the defense so they know what they're doing. And you can obviously tell that as the year has gone on, their defense has gotten a lot better because their guys are starting to figure out what they need to do for defense. So
one of the things I'm seeing, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, to me it looked like they threw at the young guys what they threw at the guys last year to start. And it led to confusion, it led to breakdowns, and they were getting beat. So Pelham simplified things and ran a lot of cover 3 and said, let's get this down. Let's get this part down. And they did. And then he slowly is now adding more pieces. And so people are going, God, they're so much better. And some of it is they went from not being able to produce what they're drawing up on the field. They weren't able to produce that. They got the cover 3 down. Now they're adding some pieces. They're adding some blitzes. You saw Coleman come off the edge on that 2-point conversion. That's something that maybe 3 weeks ago the secondary couldn't have adjusted to Coleman not being a guy that dropped back. Is that a fair assessment to say that they maybe simplified things for a couple weeks and now they're starting to reintroduce these players to some of the things that were over their heads in week 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's what they've been doing because they were really confused at the beginning of the year. You could tell, when there was a timeout or something, they were always talking to guys about technique or just little things about the coverage. And, now when you see them call a timeout, they are drawing something up and they're not really talking so much about technique. It's just about, hey, we're going to run this defense and you're going to do this. So you can just tell that they've gotten a lot better with their technique and their coverage skills. So.
Back-to-back champions, Central Catholic. This year, obviously, is your senior year. You're one of the captains with Ronnie. And obviously the streak ends this week against Clackamas. It seemed like there were just a number of pieces that didn't quite ever fall into place. It seemed like when the offensive line played well, there were some questions at quarterback. When the defense was doing well, the offense was struggling to produce a little bit. I know there was kind of a revolving door at quarterback. I know you were trying to steer the ship, but how frustrating was it this year that for your senior year, the pieces weren't quite in place, maybe talent-wise, at each position the same way they were the last couple?
It's definitely pretty frustrating after all the hard work we put in over the summer, and for us to not be able to pull it off in the off season, or not in the off season, but in the postseason. It was a tough loss for us because we prepared so hard, and then to have the season come up short and way shorter than what our goals were and what our expectations were. We were expecting to maybe be in the championship and to hopefully get a third championship in a row and kind of do something that has never been done before. So we were pretty frustrated with what happened, and there's really nothing you can do to change it. It just kind of happens.
It seemed like to some extent it impacted, Ronnie's production a little bit, your production a little bit, Lamar's production a little bit. It seemed like there were some breakdowns that that really made it difficult for you guys to free reign make the type of plays you were capable of making, and that I don't think that's necessarily on the coaching staff or anything like that. It just seemed like you guys had to do some recovery work at times versus being able to not think out there and just go make plays. Do you feel like that was the case at times, or is that a misread on my part?
Well, last year we had a ton of seniors that totally knew what they're doing the entire game. We didn't really have to worry about their mistakes or them missing plays or missing tackles because we had guys like Eamon McNeil, Matty V, Matt Vinodhagen is his name, Tyson Cooper, guys like that were always making plays and always making tackles, and they knew where they were going, and everybody else knew what they were doing. Sadiq Calhoun, our corner, Deontay Strickland, they're all seniors, and they all knew what they were doing. But this year we have some times where guys are struggling with their technique, and they're struggling with where they're going. You know, one time we had cover 2, and the other safety he wasn't even deep. So, I mean, luckily they didn't throw it to him because the guy was wide open. We had one time where we were in man coverage, and guys aren't covering their one guy that they're supposed to cover. So it was tough making open field tackles for the guys that are supposed to be covered, and it should be a sack. So it was a little bit harder this year.
So you're the ultimate competitor. You don't like to lose. I know that about you. So what are you going to be doing now up until next season? Obviously, you got baseball coming up, but kind of what is your prep work going to look like?
Well, I've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning, going to school at 5:30. Today was actually the first day I missed because I had physical therapy for my calf.
But we'll let it slide.
Yeah, I've been trying to work out every single day I can, going after school, going to club sport, trying to do whatever I can to prepare myself for next year. And I'm going to start meeting with Coach Newman and talking about the Oregon defense so I can learn the defense before I go to school. So I'm trying to get ahead as much as I can so when I get there I'm the most prepared I can be because I want to try to have a chance to play next year. And if that doesn't happen, then at least I'll know I gave 100% effort to be able to play and start my freshman year. But we'll see what happens.
Who was the top player, maybe a handful of the top players you played against on a national circuit, whether that's the 7-on-7 stuff or the opening? Were there a few guys that you just went, oh my goodness, that kid, maybe not another level, but just 3 or 4 kids maybe that stood out? To me, one of them, and I don't even know if you went up against him, was Isaac Nauta, the tight end. I couldn't believe some of the catches he was making, how quick he was in the open field, given that he was, I think, 6'5", 230. You didn't go against Rashawn Gary, but he's the number 1 prospect in the nation. He dominated people. Those are 2 guys that stood out to me at the opening. Who were some for you?
The little guy for Bishop Gorman, the little slot receiver.
Tyjon Lindsey?
Yep, Tyjon Lindsey.
That kid's
quick. He was one of the guys where it's like, shoot, this guy's a year younger than me, and he's running all over the defense. He's juking guys out, making great catches. And then once he scores a touchdown, he's doing a backflip in the end zone.
Yeah.
It's like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? We need to get him at Oregon.
And he is considering Oregon, actually.
Oh, yeah,
so
he's definitely
something for Oregon fans to maybe be excited about.
So playing against him, he was definitely one of the best fluid athletes I've ever seen because he was just all over the field and you couldn't cover him. So definitely Tyjon Lindsey.
Anybody else stand out for you? Was there a quarterback or anybody that was tough to read their eyes or did a real good job of disguising what they were doing?
The quarterbacks weren't crazy impressive to me. I mean,
I actually agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder for them because they're not in pads. So it's a little different for a quarterback because they can't scramble and they can't, make a really big play. So it's a little bit different in 7-on-7. But I think as far as DBs, Brandon, my other safety, Brandon Jones.
Brandon Jones,
yeah.
Also considering Oregon.
Yeah, he was probably one of the best safeties I've ever seen because he was just all over the place. And he actually lit a guy up in 7-on-7. And you could just tell he's just a physical player. And he knew what he was doing, too. And he was, a great teammate. And he was my roommate, actually. And he's a really good guy, too. So I'm hoping he gets to go to Oregon so I can play with him a little bit more. So,
aside from national, sticking to the state of Oregon, don't include yourself. Who are the top 3 players in the state right now at any class, any age?
I think Trayvon Bradford, Lamar Winston, and for the third guy, I don't know. I think Ronnie Russ is definitely up there too. Chase Cota.
How do you know Chase?
I don't know. I met him one time.
Isn't he your cousin?
Yeah, he's my little
okay.
cousin. he was always over at my house growing up. Always went to his house, so we know each other pretty well.
People don't realize that. I mean, you're not just throwing out your cousin for no reason. Maybe he's a sophomore. He's rated the number 3 wide receiver in the country. He's visited Alabama and Notre Dame. He's got an offer from Oregon State. I know Oregon's interested in him. How fun would it be to potentially play with your cousin? He's at South Medford. I know he was disappointed that he didn't get a chance to play with you in high school. How cool would it be to lead Oregon to the promised land and a national title together in Eugene?
Yeah, it's been something we've been looking forward to our whole life. If Oregon were to offer him, that'd be the biggest accomplishment for both of us because we would have a chance to play together in college, and he would always call himself the Jeff Mail, and I would call myself the John Boyette because we used to always go to the games together and always root for those two guys. And now that we maybe have a chance to make that happen and go to a championship and actually win a championship for Oregon, it's something pretty special because you get to share it with your cousin and maybe even my little brother Bryson Breeze. So that'd be cool if all three of us got to play at Oregon together. So we'll see what happens in the future, but that would be something pretty special.
Now, you're a pretty active recruiter for Oregon, so I know Chase isn't your limit and your reach as far as who you're recruiting. I know you're talking to Elijah Molden, and you're talking to a number of guys. Who are you working on right now, maybe 2 or 3 players that you would really like to see in an Oregon uniform that you're actually talking to at this point and trying to convince to come?
Brandon Jones. He's probably the guy that I've been talking to a little bit because he would just be an awesome teammate, an awesome guy to work out with and talk football with because he knows so much already. And he'd be a great guy to be lined up with at safety, so that'd be pretty cool to have him go to Oregon.
How involved are you in the recruiting process? I know you guys are all in a group message together, so I know to some extent you guys all share info on who's being targeted. How much are you involved in that recruiting process with Oregon that maybe they don't necessarily tell you, but you find out, hey, they're after this guy, and you guys all kind of, as a group effort, try to go out and get him? I know that was the case with Michael Pittman a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely a huge case with Michael Pittman, but I actually just got a message on Twitter from one of the Oregon coaches, hey, message these 3 guys, try to get them to come here or check on how they're doing. And so the coaches will always send me and some of the other commits the guys' phone numbers or Twitter handles so we can try and message them and ask them how much they like Oregon or what their visit was like or if they're coming to come visit Oregon, what they think of Oregon. So I think all the commits are definitely a huge part of the recruiting process because we're trying to build the best team possible.
Last question, aside from you and Lamar, who's the player in the Oregon recruiting class you're most excited to play either with or against? Who's the player that you're most excited is going to be on your team?
Jared Maiden, because we'll be on the same side of the ball and we'll both be working with Coach Neal. So, and Troy Dye too. Those 2 guys will both be working together, and it'll definitely be a pretty cool experience for those guys. Jared Maiden is a great guy too. I talked with him when we scheduled our official visit, and he's a great guy too. So we'll see what it's like in the future, but we're thinking about room together or figuring something out. So
for people who don't know, Jared Maiden's the number 1 corner in the state of Texas, 4-star prospect, had offers from a good chunk of the Big 12 and the Pac-12 and some SEC schools as well. And Troy Dye is a 3-star recruit from California, but at 6'3", 200 pounds, his highlight film's really impressive. He moves well laterally. He reads the ball well. I think there's a possibility that you redshirt a kid like that, play him at the outside linebacker spot at 6'3", 220, and with Oregon running a cover 3 a lot of the time, he drops into coverage. He's mobile enough to get to some balls and also disrupt some things if you send him on the edge on a blitz. I really like Troy Dye for what Oregon does. I think he plays up in Oregon's scheme. So, Brady, thank you for the insight and thank you for sitting down. It's fun to hear about you and Chase pretending you're former Ducks, and it'll be interesting to see if you can lure him to Oregon because obviously he's got potential to be a 5-star recruit.
Yeah, that'd be something pretty special. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Jordan, thanks.